I kind of like got the idea or the knowledge of being saved because everybody's in church and they're like, oh, you need to get saved, and that's a good thing to be saved, you know, like you're following Jesus, nothing bad. But then I feel like there's not like a technical point when growing up, like everybody just kind of tells you what to do instead of you following it by yourself. So the older I got, I didn't get the textbook knowledge of how like you actually get saved. So Pastor Louis, like the other week or so, he like went through it with me, right? That's how I got saved.
Shared the gospel with you, right?
Yeah.
Pastor Louis?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then, I started reading the Bible because someone just told me to read John. So then I've been trying to read John every day. So then I'm on chapter 15 right now. So then the more that I read, though, it gets addictive because like when you read one chapter, you're like, okay, what's next? Like, what's the next story? Or like, you're like, okay, this is what I learned from today. But noticing, like, what God is teaching, yeah, like you're thinking a different way compared to like before. And like I've been having like this moment every time when I sin, the Holy Spirit just like stops me and be like, this is wrong, don't do that. So then I kind of just look back at what I did and try to work on like repenting every day, every time I sin, and be like, hey, I'm trying to work on this area of my life, please help me, you know, like that's mostly
So before then, when you used to sin before then, what was the difference now than before when you sin?
Back then, you get so comfortable in sin that you don't think too much about it. But then now that I actually sin, I kind of like remind myself like, hey, this is hurting God. I don't want to hurt him. If he was your best friend, you don't want to hurt your best friend, you know? So every time I sin, I'm like, don't do that, you know? So then back then I would be like, okay, I get away with stuff. I don't think the whole process through of like, this is sin and what's gonna be the outcome of it. But now every time I sin, I'm like, stop yourself, or like trying to be like, don't do that because it's wrong, you know? So
at first that conviction wasn't there.
Yeah.
It's
just like a bunch. It's just like, that's wrong. You know that's wrong. But it's not like fully on like holding yourself accountable towards sin. I like relate back to being like, hey, I'm thanking God every day and be like grateful for what I have instead of thinking what can I have, you know? And it's like everything that I do have, I'm so like, it's so good that I'm blessed by him. But at the same time, I feel like I took so many things for granted years after years. I don't really acknowledge what he had done. But now that, like, let's say Thanksgiving, usually I don't like my family. That's just like brutally honest. But this time, Thanksgiving, I literally went into it and prayed and was like, I want to view the family with love. Like, I want to view every member who I ever had annoyance with, or like some sort of anger with them, that I feel love towards them. And it actually worked, because I was just like, wow, I did not see this coming at all. Like, I feel love towards them more than like anything before that I did. Yeah. With the family members, like, you can always think of their past or what they done you wrong, but instead of looking like that, like, hey, they're actually probably going through something and they're lost as well. So it's not like they're trying to inflict their pain onto you, but more of like, you have to understand they're living in their own world. But it's a matter of times before you can even share to them, to even be like, hey, I know you're struggling, but like, I know something that helps. Or like, I just have to find like the right time to do it, because my family's mostly all just everywhere. Okay? I'll be like, I want to be Christ-like, but it's hard because, you know, you can't be exactly the same as him. I try to work on whatever, like, if I don't act a certain way, like Christ, like he would say, like, oh, you're drifting away from God, I feel kind of lost, because like, I think like Thanksgiving, maybe I skip a day of devotion, then I feel like something's off my rail. Like, something's just, like, every day you can do the same thing, but if you're missing one little tiny thing, you kind of look for it. And that's what I think, like, if I don't like go through the day process, like, okay, what am I missing? And one of the important part was the devotions to start off my day, then I'll probably get lost throughout the whole day as well.
Wow.
So it's like, I have to keep on track of like, if you say, like, you know how Pastor T was like, you need to read the word, and the more you get into it, the more you desire for it.
Yeah.
So the more I desire for it, but then like, if one day I'll be like, okay, let's push this off to another day. Like, you get this feeling of like, why would you push it off another day if it's that important to you, you know, like that's your priority. So that's what I kind of like sense, like that's what I'm like working on towards.
So let me ask you a question. You did not have that before. You didn't have that same. What you telling me right now before you heard the gospel? Like surrounding Louise, you didn't have that same conviction, did you?
No. I would only like hear people say, read this passage, and then what do you get from it? Or like, you can skim it, you can skim over the Bible chapter, and then you're like, this is what I got, the story, blah, 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 blah. But you're not like feeling as moved as by like when you actually read the story and you're like, this is what Jesus is saying, and then like, that's how you should serve others or like love others because he loves you and stuff like that.
Right.
So
now you're absorbing it. That's crazy. Now how long has this been happening?
Since the 18th of November.
18th of November.
And today's the 2nd of December.
It's too much for me. It's too much for me. Can I use your story?
Yes, you can.